Welcome back to the Digital Marketing Masters podcast. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce your co-host, Creative Director at Hook Digital Marketing, the mix master of AI and reality, the social media monster, the teller of stories, Mahek Anam!
Hi, let me guess. AI is everywhere and keeping up with it feels like a full-time job. I know, right? Hey everyone, this is Mahek here and we are back. And this episode is just you and me. No guests, no experts, because just like me, if you've spent the last year hearing about artificial intelligence everywhere, every podcast, every LinkedIn post, every conversation, nodded along with it, and then thought, okay, but what do I actually do with any of this? Then this one's for you. I am talking specifically to the creative directors, the marketers, the brand builders, and the people who are in the work every day and feel the pressure of this AI wave more than the most. Well, I am a creative lead at a marketing agency. I work with AI tools like every single day, and this is me sharing what's changed and the things I've had to unlearn along the way. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Have you looked at your Instagram lately? Because if I look at my feed or LinkedIn or any brand's content from the past few months, everything kind of just looks the same. Like the same kind of visuals, same color palette, same cadence of short, punchy lines that sound vaguely motivational. It's just same hooks and different logos. It's almost like everything looks like you've seen it before because you have. And here's why. When you ask an AI tool to create something, like a caption, a visual, or a campaign concept, it basically pulls from everything it's ever been trained on. Every successful piece of content, every high performing ad, every brand that's ever worked, and it sort of gives you back the best of all of that. And here's something I haven't been able to stop thinking about since we had Maureen Dury on the show a few episodes back. She specifically said the average of the best things is still just average, which means that AI is not scraping the bottom, it's reaching for the top. But the top of everything blended together is still just what? Like the middle, or let's just call it the most expected version. It's the thing that could belong to any brand because it doesn't really belong to any brand. And I think that's the problem. But here's the good news, or at least I think is good news. And I know how this is going to sound, but after a lot of observation, I've realized that AI hasn't shrinked the creative role. It has changed it, yes, but it's also expanded it. And I know that sounds counterintuitive when you're watching tools generate images and write your content in seconds. It can feel like the creative work is being done for you. But what's actually happening is more interesting than that. You see, the execution is being handled, which means the direction has never mattered more. Okay, so think about a film director. They don't operate the camera, they don't do the lighting, they don't edit the footage, they direct and they have a vision. They know what the outcome is supposed to feel like before a single frame is shot, and they can look at 10 options and know instantly which one is right and which one's not. And that is now the creative role in the age of AI. Because you're not just the person who executes everything anymore. You're the person who knows what execution should look like. And that requires taste, which is not something AI can generate. It's something you develop over time by paying close attention to what works and what doesn't, by caring about the difference between good and almost good. So if you have spent years writing, designing, building brands, studying what makes content land, you already have this. You might have called it instinct or an eye or just knowing when something feels right. And I think that's the biggest advantage right now. Because when everyone can generate, the people who direct are the ones whose work still stands out. So AI is not replacing the creative department, it's more like an extension of it. And you, my friend, are the lead. But here's where it goes wrong, and it goes wrong for everyone, including myself. I think the reason so much AI content is falling flat is because the director sort of went missing from the brief. People are opening tools, typing vague prompts, hoping that AI figures out the rest. And what comes back is technically fine. Like it's clean, it's structured, it's polished, but it has no pulse. Nothing that makes it belong to a specific brand speaking to a specific person. So the AI didn't fail, it gave back the most likely version of a vague idea. Now, AI cannot know what you've not decided, right? So it fills the gaps, and it fills the gaps with the average, as we've already established. So if you've not done the thinking before you open the tool does the thinking for you. And then its thinking sounds like everyone else's thinking. And I've established what can be called a 3-point structure, which is basically answering 3 questions before I touch an AI tool. And it can be brief, like it doesn't have to be an essay. And so the question 1 is, who is this actually for? And the more specific you are here, the more specific your output will be. Let's say small business owners versus a founder who just lost their second big client is questioning whether they're actually differentiated. Now, the small business owners will give you generic content, but if you are specific, you will have something real to work with. And that specificity has to come from you, from actual conversations, actual research, actually knowing your audience. And that's still the job. All right, question number 2. What am I actually trying to say? And we're not talking about the topic, we're talking about the point. And there's a big difference. Okay, so saying social media marketing is a topic, but if you say most brands are creating content for themselves and not their audience, and their numbers show it, is a point. One gives you content to fill, but the other gives you a reason to keep listening. So, what I'm trying to say here is that know your point before you prompt. And not just what you're talking about, but what you're actually saying about it. And lastly, question number 3, which is also my favorite. Which tools and in what combination? And let me tell you, this is where it gets really interesting because every AI tool has a strength. Some are better for thinking and strategy, while some are better for writing and language, and some are good with visuals. So, knowing which tool to use for what and in what order is its own skill. And this also reminds me of something Ben Albert said on the show. He more or less said that the people who struggle most with AI lack taste. I think the same thing applies here. If you don't know what each tool is good at, you'll just use whatever's in front of you and wonder why the output feels off. And when you talk about taste, it works both ways. Like, what should this feel like? And also asking the other question, like, what should this not feel like? Once you have those 3 answers, now you're the director walking onto a set with a clear vision. The AI is your crew, and you're all set, ready to go. And lastly, I am going to finally say this out loud, and I think even Matt would agree with me on this. AI is not going to replace the people who can think clearly, direct well, and know what good actually feels like. If anything, it's making that harder to fake. So if you're creating in this AI wave, here's your takeaway. You don't have to try and keep up with every tool. You just have to get better at directing them. And I think that's the creative role now. Artificial intelligence can help you make more, but you still have to know what's worth making. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Masters podcast today. If this episode helped you think differently about where you fit in the AI shift, send it to someone who needs to hear it. And we will see you all in the next episode.